I was born and raised down in a little town called Clinton, New Jersey, and my mom and dad, who are going to be with us at the 10 o'clock service today, if all goes well. They're going to be celebrating their 60th anniversary, if they can make it to Thursday. Well, anyway, sometimes my mom threatens my dad like that. We're not going to see 60th unless you get that lawn mowed. Anyway, for over 30 of those years, my dad worked for IBM from the 50s on, diagnosing and repairing malfunctioning mainframe computers all over the greater New Jersey area. And he was the best in his field. And we all know that technology changes rapidly now, right, gang? Right? Your iPhones are out of date after what? 2 weeks? I don't know. Whatever. But anyway, it was that way also, maybe not quite that fast when my dad was working on computers. And so once or twice every year, he had to go to school. He called it school. To learn all about the latest computer that was coming out. And we saw the whole evolution of computers in our house. We went from cards to the big giant, the original discs were like this big, and so on. The computer, what you have in your iPhone now would probably take up the entire sanctuary in terms of memory. We saw that. Sometimes the schooling took weeks, other times it took months. And what that did was it left my mom alone in the house with us boys for extended periods of time. A fate that I wouldn't wish upon any mother on the planet. So seeing the need to set some ground rules in addition to the normal listen to your mom and do your homework or else commands, my dad would assign each of us tasks according to our age and our ability. I was the oldest, so I was given stuff like mowing the grass. It's dangerous, right? Mowing the grass, shoveling the sidewalk and driveway when it snowed, making my bed, babysitting my brothers. Now, Paul's 2 years younger than me. He was assigned stuff like feeding the dogs, making his bed, and making sure Harry, the youngest, didn't play in the road, all that kind of stuff. And the aforementioned Harry, who was 8 years younger, well, he didn't even have to make his bed. He was basically told, don't pick your nose, or something like that. That was it. Not a high bar for Harry. The point is, the degree of responsibility that was placed on us depended on our different ages and life experiences. That's why little Harry wasn't asked to mow the grass, right? And I didn't have to be told not to pick my nose after like I was 16. Anyway, having entrusted us with our duties, Dad would throw his suitcase in the trunk and he would back the car out of the driveway and let the games begin, right? Now sometimes, my mom was slick. Sometimes she wouldn't let us know when Dad was coming back home. Sometimes she would, but most of the time she wouldn't. And often he would just pull up and surprise us on a weekend. I know now why she withheld that information. It was to maintain some degree of daily order by hanging this so-called sword of Damocles over us. Now, not knowing when Dad was coming home kept a perpetual air of unease and nervousness, a watchfulness hanging over us boys. We just never knew. It made us nervous. But one thing we all did know, that when Dad did arrive back home, the task that we had been assigned had better be done. And hey, Dad could always tell whether the tasks were done by the reception he got when he arrived. If upon seeing his car, we all ran out of the house and backslapped and hugged and said, welcome home and everything, he knew that everything was in good shape. But if upon pulling the car in the driveway, he saw us all scattered like cockroaches when you turn on the light, well, some harsh sentences are about to be handed out. If he saw, for instance, that the yard hadn't been mowed in weeks, or the dogs looked thin, or our beds weren't made, or Harry was picking, never mind. Anyway, you get the picture. Not completing our assignments was simply not acceptable. I take it by all the nods I'm seeing right now, that this is not an uncommon drama, right? Right. So having shared that harrowing experience, that brings us to one of Jesus' most memorable parables, the parable of the talents. And I thought this particular parable appropriate on the Sunday that we honor Manny. who has put his considerable talents to use over the course of his lifetime, and who, along with Nora, continues to be a vital part of our church today. Saints, so much of who we are and what we believe and how God expects us to act is found in this simple little story. But maybe you've heard this story a number of times. Before we allow our familiarity with this parable lull us into passivity, I'm going to give you a warning. There is a palpable sense of urgency built into this parable. Note, for instance, where Matthew places it in his gospel. Smack dab in the middle of prophecies and parables about the end of the age, the apocalypse. Right? It immediately follows Jesus' parable of the wise and foolish bridesmaids, warning us to always be on the ready. Have our proverbial lamps filled with oil, because they need to be lit, because you never know when the groom, i.e. God, is going to show up. And the parable of the talents immediately precedes Jesus' well-known, often quoted description of the great last judgment, where the Son of Man separates the sheep from the goats based on how we have treated our neighbors in need. That's the story that says, I was hungry and you gave me bread, I was thirsty, and so on. Saints, believe it, that where Matthew put this parable was absolutely intentional. He put it there to convey a sense of urgency when it comes to understanding and ultimately living out the lessons of the parable. So let's take a fresh look at it. The parable of talents is not about a dad leaving his 3 sons with their mom. It's about a wealthy master who's about to leave 3 of his slaves in charge of his estate. Now, the master does 2 things. Pay attention, this is important. First of all, he summons them to him. He calls them. And then he entrusts them with his estate. Now, these 2 simple verbs really define our relationship with God. Each one of us is summoned or called by God. And God has entrusted each of us with various responsibilities. Note that each slave is given a different degree of responsibility. We're told that one slave was entrusted with 5 talents, another 2, and then the other 1. In Jesus' time, a talent was a fixed amount of gold or silver. And the equivalent today would be about $10,000. It's a lot of money, right? Our English word talent literally comes from this parable. So when you say someone has talent, that word came from this parable. Once the slaves receive their talents, the master throws his suitcase in the back of his chariot and backs it out of the driveway and let the games begin. Now, drama ensues. How will the slaves handle their responsibilities by the time the master makes his way back home? And here the storytelling is pretty straightforward. The slave entrusted with the 5 talents, well, he goes out and he doubles them to 10. I mean, wow, he is like the Warren Buffett of talent trading, all right? And the slave entrusted with 2 talents, well, he doubles that to 4. Not as impressive as the Warren Buffett slave, but still not bad. He's like a day trader of talents, okay? And then we come to the slave entrusted with just the 1 talent. Wah, wah. What did he do? Well, for a clue, take a look at your bulletin cover. He buried it in the ground. He never made a nickel. Let's call him the hole digging slave or something like that. Anyway, so what do you suppose is going to happen when, after a long time, the master pulls into the driveway? It will all depend on what the slaves have done with the talents they were entrusted with. Okay, first up, 5-talent Warren Buffett slave. All right, well, he struts right up to his master and says, hey, check it out. You gave me 5, well, here's 5 more, 10 altogether. Bazinga, right? And the master tells him, sweet, you're the man. I am happy, and I want you to be happy too. Come here, you big lug. I want to give you a hug. Something like that. That's my translation. Anyway, what about the 2-talent day trader slave? Well, he doubled his talents as well. And even though he didn't make as much as the Warren Buffett slave, he nevertheless gets the exact same response from the master, right? Not too shabby, made me happy. Come here, you up-and-comer wizard of the accounts, you. And another big hug ensues. Such a happy scene so far, right? What could go wrong? Uh-oh. It's hole digging slave with his 1 talent. and we already know that this ain't going to end well. After seeing what the other two slaves did with their talent, he's got a bad feeling about this. And so he skulks sheepishly up to the master, brushing the dirt off his one talent. And before his master can even say a word, what's he do? Unbelievably, the hole-digging slave starts digging himself deeper because he starts blaming the master for his actions. He says, hey, I knew you were a harsh dude taking what isn't yours. Scared me to death. Scared me to death. So rather than risking your talent, I dug a hole and put it there for safekeeping. Here, just take it. It's yours anyway. I never wanted this thing in the first place. Needless to say, this does not go over well with the big guy. Not pleased. Not pleased. But even 2,000 years later, we're still pretty shocked by the boss's reaction. Basically, it's like you malodor a slovenly slave. So I'm a harsh dude who takes what isn't mine. That's what you think of me? If that's the case, then you should have at least got me some interest. You should have put that talent in like a money market fund or something. But no, give me that talent. So he takes the talent. He goes, here, Warren Buffett slave. My man, here, you take it. I know you've done great things with what I gave you, and so take this. But as for you, hole-digging slave, you, my friend, are straight on your way to H-E double toothpicks, where you will be in perpetual agony. So go on and get him out of here. And just like that, the hole-digging slave is hauled off kicking and screaming. See, I told you it was harsh. That's pretty harsh. Was it not? At first it seems like a little bit of an overreaction. Right? Cast him right into hell. No warning. No strike one. No strike two. Just boom. I ask you, what did he do to deserve that? This guy didn't really do anything, did he? He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. That's a sort of point, isn't it? He was punished harshly because he didn't do anything. He was summoned by his master, he was given one talent, and he did nothing with it. Let me ask you, could there be anything more displeasing in the eyes of God? Someone very famous once said, the hottest place in hell is reserved for those who remain neutral in times of great moral conflict. Who said that? The person sounds as tough as the master in the story. Who said it? I'm going to give you a couple hints. It was the same person who said this. He who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetuate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it. The same person who said, history will have to record that the greatest tragedy of this period of social transition was not the strident clamor of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people. Who was it?
J.W.
J.W.? No, MLK. Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King said that. Not exactly a person known for his harsh judgment. But King, like others seeking to build the kingdom of God, recognized that the greatest enemy to be confronted was not those who openly opposed them, rather those who were capable of helping, but who chose instead to sit on the sidelines, remain stuck to their pews, and do nothing. You see, saints, that's why the punishment given to the one-talent slave is justified. He could have made a genuine difference. He had a talent. But rather than put it to use, what did he do? He buried it. He thought that simply breaking even was good enough when it came to his responsibility. But I ask you, is there anything sadder or more frustrating than talent that's wasted? Not according to Jesus. Then and now, the message he teaches his followers through this parable is very simple, is it not? We are not put here on earth to break even. Each one of us has been called to leave this earth a better place than when we found it, to advance the kingdom of God, not to spin our wheels in the dirt. And each one of us has been entrusted with a certain talent or talents to make it happen. Now, the parable is clear. Not all talent is equal. Some people have 5 talent ability, others 4 talent, others 3 or 2, or just 1. We're not all equal in talent. Our gifts differ. But we are all equal in terms of our responsibility to employ the gifts we possess to build the kingdom of God. In that, we are all equal. Saints, if our religious life consists of nothing more than going to church on Sunday, we might as well be taking our talent and burying it in the cold, hard ground. The parable of the talents teaches us that such an apathetic life is not only unacceptable to God, it is abhorrent to God. What is the worst sin that we can commit? Sin with a capital S? Is it not the failure to live out our calling? The failure to use the talent that God has given us. The greatest sin for those of us who claim to be a follower of Jesus is to waste our gift. You say, wow, Reb, that sounds harsh. Yeah, it sure does. But how can we interpret this parable otherwise? Think about it. Think about what happens when gifts go wasted. Think about what's at stake. The answer is everything. Everything is at stake. And the time right now that we're living in, is as urgent as it's ever been. And we've seen hundreds of thousands take to the streets because they sense the urgency, and they refuse to sit on the sidelines while things fall apart. You know who had it right? Albert Einstein had it right. He said this. He said, the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. Again, remember where Matthew placed this parable in the gospel. Just before the great judgment. Just before the Son of Man separates the good sheep from the bad goats. Based entirely on what? On how we exercise our faith. Saints, we have been summoned to a purpose. We've been entrusted with the gifts necessary to make it happen. What happens when gifts go wasted? What happens in the local church when gifts go wasted? What ends up happening is a very few people end up having to do the majority of the work. And they get overworked. Ministries remain buried. They don't get done, or they don't get done right. But even bigger than this. What happens when gifts go wasted? This happens. I was hungry and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, you did not welcome me. I was naked, and you did not give me any clothing. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. And here's what's sad, gang. We had the food, we had the drink, we had the welcome mat. We had the clothing and the time to visit. We had the gifts to make it happen. But we chose instead to bury our gifts in the dirt. And our apathy has a price. But here's the good news. Here's the good news. Saints, it's never too late to answer God's call. Never too late to start putting our talents to good use. Our God is righteous in his judgments, but God is above all compassionate and forgiving. So if your gift is buried out back somewhere, I have an idea. Get the heck out there and dig it up. And make it quick. We have a lot of challenges before us as a church, as a nation, and as a world. And God needs every last one of us to answer that